The dust kicked up around forward operating base, Salerno, as another convoy rolled through the gates, and Staff Sergeant Maria Santos barely looked up from the soldier, writhing on her medical table. Blood seeped through his fatigues from shrapnel wounds, but her hands moved with surgical precision, each motion calculated and deliberate. The other medics rushed around her, but Maria worked in focused silence, her fingers finding pressure points and torn vessels with an accuracy that made seasoned combat veterans stop and stare. Sergeant Rodriguez watched from the corner, shaking his head. "She is something else," he muttered to Private Chun. "Just a medic, but damn if she doesn't work like a machine." Chun nodded, not understanding that Maria heard every word, felt every doubt in their voices. They saw her small frame, her quiet demeanor, and assumed she was just another support soldier playing it safe behind the lines. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you know someone who served in Afghanistan or have military family yourself. Maria finished suturing the last wound and stepped back, her eyes scanning the soldier's vitals one final time. The wounded soldier's breathing steadied under Maria's care as she moved to clean her instruments with the same methodical precision she applied to everything else. Captain Morrison entered the medical tent, his weathered face showing the strain of 3 tours in this godforsaken valley. He nodded at Maria with genuine respect, one of the few officers who recognized her value beyond the red cross on her helmet. "Good work, Santos," he said, watching her organize medical supplies into perfect rows. "The soldier will make it thanks to you." Maria simply nodded, her dark eyes already scanning the tent for the next task that needed her attention. She had learned long ago that words meant little in this place where death visited daily. Outside, the distinctive crack of rifle fire echoed across the rocky terrain, and Maria's head turned toward the sound with an intensity that would have surprised her colleagues. Her fingers paused on a bandage roll, and for just a moment, something flickered across her features that looked almost like recognition. The other medics continued their work, oblivious to the subtle change in their quiet colleague. Morrison caught the look and filed it away in his memory, wondering what secrets lay behind Maria's calm exterior as another distant shot rang out. The alarm pierced through the Afghan morning like a blade, and Maria's hands never trembled as she prepared her medical kit. Another convoy hit, another soldier down, and the familiar rhythm of combat medicine kicked into overdrive. But this time was different. The radio crackled with panic as Sergeant Thompson's voice broke through the static. "Sniper, sniper, we've got a sniper on the ridge," he shouted, his usual composure shattered. "Johnson is down, headshot from at least 800 meters. Maria's fingers tightened imperceptibly on her medical bag as she processed the distance and angle required for such a shot. The convoy limped back to base with Johnson barely clinging to life, and Maria worked frantically to stabilize him while other soldiers cursed about the invisible enemy. Corporal Williams paced behind her, his rifle clutched uselessly in white-knuckled hands. 800 meters through mountain wind, he muttered. What kind of shooter can make that shot? Maria continued her work in silence, but her mind was calculating trajectory, wind speed, and elevation drop with an expertise that had nothing to do with battlefield medicine. The shot pattern told her everything she needed to know about their enemy's skill level. Johnson survived, but barely, and the base fell into a tense silence as word spread about the sniper's deadly accuracy. Maria finished cleaning his wounds while listening to the heated discussion among the unit's marksmen. Staff Sergeant Kelly, their best designated marksman, studied aerial photos of the surrounding ridges with growing frustration. "I've been looking for this ghost for 3 hours," Kelly admitted to Captain Morrison. "The bastard fires one shot and vanishes like smoke." Maria glanced up from her patient, noting how Kelly's finger traced possible shooting positions on the map. His analysis was competent, but incomplete, missing the subtle terrain features that would provide the perfect hide. Morrison rubbed his temples, the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. "We need that sniper eliminated before he picks off more of our people," he said. Kelly nodded grimly and headed toward the armory to collect his rifle and scope. Maria watched him go, her trained eye noting the slight tremor in his hands that spoke of accumulated stress and caffeine dependence. A sniper's hands should never shake, she thought, then caught herself and returned to checking Johnson's vitals with renewed focus. Kelly returned 2 hours later without firing a single shot, his face flushed with embarrassment and anger. The sniper had disappeared again, leaving only empty cartridge casings and a lingering scent of cordite on the mountain breeze. Maria watched him slam his rifle down on the cleaning table, muttering curses about impossible angles and phantom targets. The wind shifted every few minutes up there, Kelly explained to Morrison, his voice tight with frustration. By the time I acquired a target, he was already repositioning. This guy knows these mountains better than we do. Maria continued organizing medical supplies, but her ears tracked every word of their tactical discussion. She knew those ridges too, had studied topographical maps during her previous deployment when her role was very different. The sniper was using a classic pattern, firing from secondary positions while keeping his primary hide concealed behind false crests. Another radio call interrupted their planning, and Private Martinez rushed in with fresh intelligence. "Sir, the observation post reports movement on the eastern ridge," he announced breathlessly. The sniper might be setting up for another shot. Morrison's jaw tightened as he processed the implications of facing an enemy who seemed to anticipate their every move. The second shot came at 1,147 hours, and this time Maria heard it before the radio reports confirmed another casualty. The distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle echoed off the valley walls, followed by the urgent calls for medical assistance. She grabbed her aid bag and sprinted toward the perimeter where Corporal Davis lay motionless behind a concrete barrier. The bullet had punched through his shoulder, missing vital organs, but causing massive tissue damage that required immediate intervention. Maria worked with practiced efficiency while other soldiers hugged cover, their eyes scanning the ridgelines for any sign of muzzle flash or movement. 1,200 meters, Davis gasped through gritted teeth as Maria applied pressure to his wound. The shot came from the tall ridge behind the communications tower. Maria's hands never paused in their work, but her mind automatically calculated the ballistics required for such a precise shot through shifting mountain winds. Kelly appeared beside them, his face grim with determination. "I'm going after him," he announced, chambering a round in his rifle. "This ends today." But Maria could see the subtle signs of fatigue in his movements, the slight tremor that would throw off his aim when precision mattered most. Kelly's third attempt ended like the others, with empty hands and mounting frustration. He returned to base as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the compound, his rifle unfired and his confidence visibly shaken. Maria watched him from the medical tent where she was restocking supplies, noting how his shoulders sagged with the weight of repeated failure. Captain Morrison called for an emergency briefing, his voice carrying across the base with unusual urgency. "We got confirmation that more convoys are moving through the valley tomorrow," he announced to the assembled soldiers. "That sniper will have multiple targets, and we can't afford to lose more people to this ghost." The room buzzed with nervous energy as soldiers discussed tactics and contingencies, but Maria remained silent, her dark eyes focused on the tactical map spread across Morrison's field table. She could see the patterns others missed, the logical progression of positions that would give the sniper maximum effectiveness against convoy routes. Private Chin voiced what everyone was thinking. "Sir, what if Kelly can't get him? What if none of our marksmen can match this guy?" Morrison's jaw tightened as he considered options that were rapidly running out. Dawn broke with ominous silence across the valley, and Maria felt the familiar tension that preceded combat operations. The first convoy was scheduled to depart in 2 hours, carrying supplies to forward positions that desperately needed resupply. She checked her medical equipment with extra care, knowing that today would test everyone's limits. Captain Morrison stood near the radio, his face etched with worry as he coordinated with higher command. "Negative on sniper support," he said into the handset, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Nearest team is 6 hours out, and we can't delay these convoys any longer." Maria paused in her preparations, catching fragments of the conversation that confirmed her worst fears. They were going ahead without adequate protection, gambling lives against an enemy who had already proven his deadly accuracy. Kelly sat nearby, cleaning his rifle for the fourth time, his movements mechanical and obsessive. The radio crackled with an update from the observation post, and Maria's blood ran cold as the report filtered through the command tent. Movement confirmed on the eastern ridge, same position as yesterday's shooting. The sniper was already in place, waiting for his targets to present themselves. The convoy rolled out at 0800 hours, and Maria watched from the base perimeter as the vehicles disappeared into the narrow valley pass. Kelly had positioned himself on the western tower with his rifle, but she could see the defeat already settling into his shoulders. He was trying to cover an impossible field of fire against an enemy who had every advantage. 20 minutes later, the radio erupted with desperate calls for assistance. "Convoy under fire! Convoy under fire!" The voice crackled through heavy static. "We have 1 Kia and 2 wounded. Request immediate medical support." Maria was already moving toward the medical vehicle when Morrison grabbed her arm. "It's too dangerous, Santos," he said, his eyes scanning the ridge lines where death waited patiently. "That sniper will pick off anyone who moves into the kill zone." But Maria shook her head, her medical oath overriding tactical considerations. "Those soldiers need help now," she replied, loading her trauma kit with practiced efficiency. "Every minute we wait increases their chances of bleeding out." Morrison's grip tightened on her arm as another shot echoed across the valley, followed by more panicked radio calls that confirmed their worst fears about facing a master marksman. Morrison released her arm and stepped back, his face a mask of conflicted emotions as he weighed duty against pragmatism. The radio crackled again with increasingly desperate pleas for medical assistance, and Maria could hear the pain in voices she recognized. These were her people, soldiers she had patched up countless times, and they were dying while she stood helplessly on the sidelines. "Captain," Kelly's voice came through the comms, strained with frustration. "I can't get a clear shot from this position. The angle is wrong, and he's using dead space to stay hidden." Morrison cursed under his breath and grabbed his Barrett .50 caliber rifle from the weapons rack. The captain had been a marksman before taking command, but years of administrative duties had dulled his edge. Maria watched him check the massive rifle scope, her trained eye noting the slight hesitation in his movements that spoke of uncertainty about engaging at extreme range. "Sir," she said quietly, stepping closer as another anguished call for help echoed from the radio. "The wind patterns up their shift every 30 seconds, and the mirage from heated rocks will distort your scope picture at this distance." Morrison froze with his hand on the Barrett's grip, his eyes locking onto Maria's face with sudden understanding. "How do you know about mirage effects and wind patterns, Santos?" he asked, his voice cutting through the chaos of radio chatter. The question hung in the air like smoke from a discharged round. Maria felt the weight of years of carefully maintained secrecy pressing down on her shoulders. Another desperate call from the convoy shattered her resolve, and she met Morrison's stare with steady determination. "Because I graduated first in my class from sniper school before I transferred to medical, sir." The admission fell like a stone into still water. Morrison's eyes widened as pieces of a puzzle he never knew existed suddenly clicked into place. The precision of her medical work, her uncanny ability to remain calm under pressure, the way she unconsciously analyzed every tactical situation. "Santos," he said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper, "can you make that shot?" Maria looked at the Barrett .50 caliber rifle, its familiar weight and balance calling to muscle memory she had tried to forget. 1,200 meters through mountain wind to save her fellow soldiers. "Yes, sir," she replied without hesitation. "I can make that shot." Morrison handed Maria the Barrett without another word, and she felt the familiar weight settle into her hands like a missing piece of her soul. The rifle's balance was perfect, its scope crystal clear as she moved to the shooting position with fluid grace that silenced every soldier watching. Her transformation was complete and terrifying. Maria settled behind the massive rifle and began her calculations, reading wind speed from grass movement and heat shimmer patterns with an expertise that seemed almost supernatural. The radio calls for help continued, but she blocked them out, entering the zen-like state that separated true snipers from mere marksmen. Through the scope, she found her target. The enemy sniper was barely visible through a gap in the rocks, confident in his concealment and unaware that death was coming for him across an impossible distance. Maria's breathing slowed to match her heartbeat as she made final adjustments for elevation and windage. The Barrett roared like thunder, its massive round crossing 1,200 meters of mountain air in less than 2 seconds. Through her scope, Maria watched the enemy sniper crumple and disappear behind his rocky hide. The radio immediately filled with relieved voices reporting that the shooting had stopped. If this story moved you, share your thoughts about Maria's courage, or tell us if you know someone in the military who surprised everyone with hidden skills.